Oh, there we go. Okay, Seth, I've realized that in my tech priesting duty, I had it on mute here to get started. So we're off to a great start for tonight, but we're professional from
Was
here
I on
on out.
mute then?
You were muted. That was you on mute, and that was a me. I'm getting warmed up here.
Okay.
But yeah, we've got a long weekend ahead of us because Seth, we're both getting ready for Cherokee Open.
Yep.
Our friend Kicker, who is the Sigilite of Frontline Gaming here, he is not here tonight because he's already on site at Cherokee and maybe setting up tables, maybe trying the combat juice, which we've talked about in the last couple of shows. But he's busy doing a lot of things. But where are you in your status in being ready for Cherokee right now?
I painted a lot. Because I was not on last week. I was spending the day with my wife for Valentine's Day. So I don't think I have a clear memory of exactly where I left off in terms of my hobby progress, but I painted a lot. The army's done. I even went back to all of the models I finished previously and added some tufts. I really kind of wanted to, like, it was a desert theme, but I kind of wanted the vibe of like the Necrons are sucking the life out of the area.
Okay.
So I put some green tufts on there, but then a lot of burnt kind of and dead grass stuff. Just to kind of give it that vibe that they were sucking the life out of the area around them. But it's all done. It's all packed up. We were just talking. My army's packed. My clothes are packed. I still got to pack my toiletries. My wife has her clothes laid out, but they're not packed yet. And we leave tomorrow morning so we can swing by the airport to pick up head FLG judge Adam Solis on our way up. What about you? How goes your prep for Cherokee?
Yep. So I am leaving last year for Cherokee. I talked about it after the event where I was part of the Legion of Extraordinary Gentlemen bus crew, which at that point, that trip was actually the first time that I was meeting many of those guys, which let me tell you, folks, if you haven't met a group of roughly 12 people before and then spend 12 hours in a bus or van with them, you get to know them real well after that.
Yes, you do.
I am now officially a member of that team, and we'll talk more about that team. But I have my suitcase packed. I need to pack my army.
Okay, that's important.
Yes, that's going to be important to playing or enjoying my weekend, probably a good bit. So I need to pack my army and I need to get some of my day job work done because, I have 2 less work days that I'm doing this week. But but it'll be this weekend. I've talked about it the last couple of weeks, Seth. This is going to be my 3rd weekend in a row playing Warhammer 40,000, which, let me tell you, people, it is something you should strive for. If anybody has done more than 3 weeks in a row, let us know in the chat or let us know in the comments or on the Frontline Gaming community page. I'd actually be interested, like, what's the Guinness World Record for playing in tournaments in a row?
Most events in, like, GT or RTT?
RTTs count, but it has to be, but it has to be an actual
you have to complete
event
every event. I think that's,
that's
showing up and then dropping doesn't count. You gotta finish all the rounds.
Full event. So anyways, this weekend was the Battle to End Alzheimer's in Westminster, Maryland, put on by JC Watts and the guys from Legion of Extraordinary Gentlemen at Tables and Towers. Great event. I think the final number, because people drop, register but then drop. I think final number was 109 players. The event, JC's goal was to raise over $20,000 this year. And there are still some donations trickling in. Like, actually, I talked to my mom today, and she saw what I posted on Facebook about the event, and she's like, "Hey, can I donate still?" Yes, Mom. Here's the link. And so, but the event, the number is $31,000 and counting. So
that's damn impressive, and that was
absolutely smashed it.
There was I watched the event because Joe from War Games Live streamed it, and Joe donated all super chats that weekend to the overall donations, and there was actually a competition going between in-person donations and YouTube donations. And if YouTube donations won, Joe was going to get a tattoo. Unfortunately, even though YouTube brought in like $11,000 in donations, it didn't beat in-person donations.
Yeah, the in-person donate. So this is my plug. When JC runs the next one of these events, there's some amazing raffle prizes at the event. He had multiple Imperial Knights. He had a Orc Stompa, Seth, that I think Chris Holdridge from Legion actually won that. So nice. You can probably get some pictures of that. But it was a great event. For me at the event, I went 3-3. I was running a demons list because I wanted to try out Khorne demons, and I had talked to our friend TJ about, hey, I want to try this list. He had told me, will it be fun? Probably. Will it be good? No. But if you want to run it, go for it. I did. And Saturday night during dinner, I told him, hey, you were right. This list, is it fun? Sure. Is it good?
Good.
No. It was not good.
TJ does know his chaos.
Yeah. So I had a great time with the event. Loved it. Had some great games. Especially, I'll give shout outs to my round 4 opponent, Adam from Legion of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Orcs versus Demons melee match. Come on,
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's just a lot of fun. And then round 6, I played Mark and his world leaders. The picture, if you're watching on screen, is Be'lakor and Angron going toe to toe. Be'lakor survived barely and then ran away so that 12 blood crushers could drown Angron in mortal wounds and kill him, which they did. But Mark, that might have been the most fun game of 40K I've ever played, so I have to give him a shout out tonight.
Nice.
Kudos to you, sir. But let's real quick here, Seth, before we get into other things. Our friend Kicker, he has been hiking on his way up, not the entire way to Cherokee, right?
No, he did not hike from Louisiana to North Carolina. He drove.
He's going there.
Hike. He did take stops to hike while he was driving because he can't not play in the woods.
He can't not hike, and do those sort of things. But all right, let's get into our topic or our news for tonight. And speaking of our friend Kicker, something that you and I know he has been very, very excited about the last week.
Yes.
Actually, I think all of us kind of have in some different ways.
Yeah.
Who is this guy that's on screen between our two heads? Can you describe it for the podcast listeners?
The official name is the Kroot Lone Spears, but I do like the name that you've given them for our listeners. It's Mounted Murder Birds.
Yes.
And it's basically, if you can imagine cold ones from fantasy with Kroot on top of them with spears and guns and spears that have bombs on them. And I'm intrigued. I want to know what that does. They're really cool looking. The mounts are actually called Calamandras, says. I can't say that. I'm gonna need.
It's like salamander, but with
it's calamanders. All right, we're gonna go with calamanders then. They have like a kind of chameleon ability to shift colors, which is really cool. And they did note in the article that this will be part of the second release of Tau Miniatures. So it sounds like our Tau release, whenever it is coming, is going to be a multi-wave release.
Yeah.
We've already seen the Kroot hunting pack at LVO. And that'll be kind of in the first, that box they've shown us when you get your Tau Codex, kind of similar to the Dark Angels release where we got the box with kind of special edition stuff. And then the second wave with the main release of the Codex and the rest of the models looks like that's how it's going to be coming out. So I'm definitely interested in this. As you know, Nicky Dee Cannon, I am a longtime Tau player. I've actually played them since the Army was released in 3rd edition. And so I'm always excited for new models. And frankly, if I'm going to be honest, I hate painting Tau armor. It drives me nuts because you need to do so much line highlighting to make it look cool. And I love painting organics, which is partly why I like painting orcs. So Kroot, which are mostly organic in a Tau army, beautiful. I'm in. Let's do it. We know Kickers probably already has some order somewhere of max number of these things. He's super excited. I'm sure he's just frothing at the mouth for them, but he will have to wait until they're released like the rest of us.
Yes, I think that's true. My favorite thing and you mentioned they've got the spears they're riding on it. I've seen lots of memes with these guys already that are memes from Mad Max Fury Road, right? Where the guys on the truck there. So which we haven't really talked about it, but there is a Mad Max Furiosa prequel that's coming out this summer. At some point we'll have to talk about that further because that's actually one of the movies I'm most excited to see. But anything that reminds me of Mad Max is kind of a win in my book. Okay, so while I don't normally, you and Tau, well, you like Tau, you play Tau, you have played Tau for a long time. Kicker has the last few weeks talked about how much he loves the Kroot. Me, I do not care about it aside from getting Mad Max memes via these guys. That's all. That's all it is for me.
All right.
But something, Seth, that I do like that I want to note here real quick. Games Workshop did announce today the next series on Warhammer Plus, Broken Lance. Did you watch the trailer for this yet?
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, it's about a minute trailer, so it's really quick. You get a voiceover from an Imperial Knight pilot talking to his crew, his bondsmen, that sort of thing, about how they're going to defend their planet. And then from there, it's big robots smashing into each other. We see that we're going to be getting some Imperial Knight versus Chaos Forces. Lots of knights that are in there. So it seemed like this was going to be coming sooner than we expect as Warhammer Plus series. And it's been, more than a few months since we saw the Necron Pariah series. So in general, I've liked the Warhammer Plus series. They're always a little bit too short for my liking, but they've generally been pretty good. So thoughts, are you going to be interested in watching this, Seth?
Yeah, I mean, and kind of going back to they're too short, but they're good. I'm like, I would rather have good short content, then Ultramarines the movie again. Okay. So I am fine if the quality is still good and the narrative is good. I am fine with them being short form content.
There we go. Okay. All right. Well, Seth, let's try to keep ourselves to short form content. That's going to be
Okay.
hard for us, but let's get into this week's pre-orders, what's going to be coming up, and then let's get into our main segment for tonight's show, which is going to be talking about Cherokee Open. But
yeah, so
let the people know what's up for
it
pre-order.
is all Dark Angels this week. So if you remember, we had the box set of almost a month ago now.
Yeah.
But now we have the official full release. That's the Codex supplement, the models, Asmodai, Belial, Inner Circle companions, the new Deathwing Knights, the upgrade sets for Dark Angels. They've updated the combat patrol. It's now a Captain Gravis armor, 3 Blade Guard, 5 Hellblasters, 10 Ancestors, and 2 of the upgrade sprues in there, which is awesome. They have their own dice and data cards. So all the things you expect of the Codex release are here. Remember, GW always treats those limited edition boxes as not the release of the Codex, so not legal. So Dark Angels Codex was not legal for Cherokee. So this is coming out. Pre-orders are up right now. I think the street date for them is next weekend. No, it's this weekend.
It is. The pre-order is this weekend. Yeah,
pre-orders this weekend. So yeah, it'll be the weekend after that. So looking forward to that. They always have been really good lately about kind of putting on a new lore piece with each Codex update. So this book was Lazarus, Enemy's Edge. And if you remember, Lazarus was the Primaris character they introduced into, like, the first Primaris model into the Dark Angels. So that's really cool to see that they're kind of building off his story. And if I remember correctly, the bugger gives like feel no pains against mortal wounds and annoys the crap out of me.
Yeah, his thing, and there really hasn't been a lot of lore actually about him when he was originally debuted in what was it, Psychic Awakening, I think. But his thing was that he's a Primaris character that like died as it related to fighting, some psychers or something like that. So his general thing is that he's a captain, I think, of Fifth Company, but he's a captain that really, really hates psychers. And that's what he's good against, and that's how we boost your army is defense against them. So I think he's interesting. As I've talked to some Dark Angel fans that I know, they're interested in reading about him just because it's the sort of thing where, hey, he's a new-ish character for their faction that they actually know very little about, and the model does look cool. So I think everybody's kind of a fan of that. He's
Cypher, just admit it.
That would be quite the plot twist there for yeah, there we go.
Surprise, it's Cypher. Anyway, all right, moving on from that, we do have some FLG news in terms of Cherokee. The thing that happens tomorrow. Kicker did send us some important on-site information for folks that are attending. So if you're attending and you're getting there, make sure when you check in, there's 2 towers. The casino is like one long connected building, but there are 2 towers in it. The tower that is near the convention center, which is where we're going to be for the event, is usually where they're going to put your hotel room. So check in at that tower. That means that you don't have to walk as much. So you can park near there, check in there, walk to your room, nice and easy. There's also automated kiosks in there. You can just use your confirmation number to check into your room, which makes it really easy to get in and out. Makes your life, particularly if there's a long line. I actually didn't look this year, but I remember 2 years ago there was a World Series of Poker tournament.
Yeah.
And a Bret Michaels concert on the same weekend while we were there. It was crazy busy.
Yeah, I actually see, because I'm a rock, I'm a metal fan, and when I look at tours where they're going, the Cherokee location is actually becoming an increasingly popular site, like for metal shows. So I'm just waiting where one of these years
where it lines up.
Cherokee is going to line up with me getting to see like Seven Dust or Gojira or something else like that, which I'll be very eager to see that. Seth, I also have to call out something real quick. We need to come up with a good name for this, because as we noted with the Cherokee Casino, it's the 2 towers. Yes. We need to have like the Lords of FLG, the 2 towers, or Lord of Cherokee, the 2 towers. Like, does this make Kicker like Saruman in this sort of thing? I mean,
if anyone, Kicker's one of the hobbits that walks through the woods forever. He's either Samwise or Frodo.
Okay. I think Seth, you're gonna have to be one of the Ents, I think, in this. Like, you're a giant, being. So I think you're gonna be an Ent if we're talking Lord of the Rings, the 2 towers. With, I don't know, I'm gonna say
beard.
I might have to be Gandalf. Like, he comes back in that. I don't have that part of it, but
Gimli.
Gimli. I mean, I'm all in. I'm all in for Gimli. I will
Yeah.
gladly take on any dwarf ability that's there. So, I mean, and was it last year? Yeah, last year the emblem for Cherokee was the dwarf with the axes. So
Yeah.
there we go. All right. Okay. Anyways, what
Anyway.
else do the folks need to know about Cherokee?
Anyway, besides that, we have food in the hall. There's a lot of food on site, but if you're lazy like me, food in the hall, breakfast, lunch, and dinner is going to be available. We have family style dinners set up. So if you don't want to venture out into the casino, if it's busy, stay in the hall. Lots of good food. I usually at least get breakfast and lunch in there, just because it's easy to kind of grab a biscuit and a coffee and sit down and consume and try to wake up before I play games. They are starting setup at noon tomorrow. So if you are in the area and are already settled in, come on down and give us a hand. We always appreciate it. We do have the meet and greet at 6 to 8. I personally am going to be leaving a little bit early because my wife and I have dinner reservations because she wants to go out and I want to go out with her because it's her birthday. And then, of course, Kicker's already been hiking out in the national parks today, seeing elk, highly recommended. So if you have some time and you want to get up early, I bet you we could convince Kicker to lead a nature hike.
I don't think that would be hard to do at all for this event or any event for that matter. But obviously, it's much easier to do at Cherokee.
All right, so let's get into Cherokee itself. Nicky Dee, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I didn't put stuff in the notes about this.
Okay.
You and I looked through all the lists today, and I picked out some fun ones to talk about.
Yeah.
But part of this is our experience. You and I have been to Cherokee every year. It's been running. This is its third year. What do you like about Cherokee, and what makes it kind of different than the other FLG events that you've been to?
Yeah, so for me personally, Cherokee is my favorite Warhammer event that I get to go to every year.
Mm-hmm.
It is part of that for me. It was one of the first, when it ran 2 years ago. That was really my first big event after the COVID times. So part of it is, to some extent for me, the nostalgia of it, but just the event is fantastic. If you have not gone to Cherokee before, the casino, the hotel that it's at, it's brand new. The first Cherokee, it only was about 2 or 3 months after this location opened. So the rooms, very nice. And especially if you get in on the room block, which you should from Frontline Gaming, very decently priced, very well priced. And then between that, you've got, great gaming hall, good space that's there, from it around the gaming hall, you get good access for water stations, water fountains, bathrooms, which when you're playing for 9 hours a day, that's all very advantageous. And then besides that, I lived in North Carolina for 9 years, so I really enjoy local, good North Carolina food and beer. North Carolina is one of the best states when it comes to local craft beers. So the food and everything else that you can get in Cherokee, like the after hours, type of activities, you're gonna have some really good meals and drinks at a really good price. And then just the final thing that I would say, Seth, you're down in the South. Kicker's down in the South. I live there in North Carolina, like I said, for 9 years. There's just a special something about the player base. The level of just camaraderie and fun that's there with it is just turned up a little bit more than many of the events that I go to. And that's not meant to shade towards any other events that I have attended or if I go to your events, but that's just simply Cherokee, I think, is just, at least from the 40K standpoint, maybe the closest to like how people talk about Age of Sigmar tournaments or Age of Sigmar at LVO, where people are just really excited.
The party and the party vibes.
Yeah.
For me, I went to this a few years ago when it first started. It is in a very beautiful location. And my wife decided to go with me on that first year. And I honestly can't even remember. It's her birthday. There's always this time of year. And I think it was because some of her friends lived it that way, but she decided she wanted to join me and make it her birthday weekend. And to give you an idea, this is now like mandatory every year she goes now, because it is literally in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. You walk out of the casino, there is a river behind the casino and mountains covered in trees. I think last year our room actually was like on the top floor looking into the mountains, so we get to see like all the fog and it was great. It was great. So it ended up being a really nice time for my wife because it was lots of cool things to explore in the area. The casino itself is very nice. There's lots of good restaurants. I think last year they also added the Gordon Ramsay food court, which I think we went to a couple nights. It was very good.
It's a lot of good options there for sure.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of good food there. And it works out well because it's something that my wife and I can do together. She can go out and explore. I think last year she went to Asheville, which is nearby, and
Yeah,
did a lot of
about an
kind of
hour away.
antiquing and shopping with some of the friends she met at these events in the years past. So it's you're right. It's a very relaxed atmosphere with everyone. It's the first big event of the year for FLG after LVO's done.
Yeah.
It's not really that long ago. It's
I
like
mean, it's
almost,
also at least as it's the biggest event in the U.S.
yeah.
since LVO, right? And for the new season
Yeah,
for
yeah,
everybody. So that's a really exciting thing.
it's the biggest event thus far this year for anywhere in the U.S. It is also because it's not next to like a major airport. It is very much. I wouldn't say the other events don't have a local vibe, but this is heavily influenced by the region, the local community, because it is a lot of more guys that are driving in versus flying in. So it is a lot of the guys from the southeast. I can run through the list in BCP and just see a bunch of names of friends I know.
Yep, same
I
here.
like it because it's also kind of equidistant between us, so I get to see some of my northeast friends come down for it. So it's really a good time. It's I know it's one of Kicker's passions getting this one off the ground, so I was excited to see it succeed, and it's just a good time. So I think that's about it. Now, Nicky D,
Yes,
before
sir.
we get too much further into lists, I want to know what you're bringing.
Okay, I am going back. Let me preface this, Seth. I've been going back and forth with what I want to play. I play Space Marines, Blood Angels, and Space Marines got a codex not
Mm-hmm.
that long ago.
Yep.
Necron's got a codex, but
Yep.
Death Guard, I'm still waiting, for them. I've played Chaos Demons, that's there. But, what is good in 10th edition or what's good
Mm-hmm.
for running your list in 10th edition? It's different than 9th edition, 8th edition, all those sort of things. So I'll admit that I've been somewhat struggling with my list design and what I want to run because there's some hobby lag that I need to get through to run the things that are truly competitive. So
Mm-hmm.
my thought process to this was, well, I'm not going to be, I don't have the toys to bring the competitive list for the purpose of winning. So if I don't have that, I want to run the army that I'm going to have the most fun with, and that's Blood Angels. I've had
Okay.
a ton of fun running Blood Angels the last couple of months and a couple different detachments. I'm going to run them this weekend in Gladius Task Force. And because I'm going for fun, I am bringing my favorite character in the Blood Angels. Folks, I will have Mephiston in my list.
I was going to say
Yes.
Gabriel Seth.
No, no. Oh, I played against Gabriel Seth this weekend. Oh boy, he's mean. If you haven't played him, watch out. But no, Mephiston is in my list. I'm excited. I'm going for fun. I've got a list that I think is going to be pretty straightforward for me to pilot based on how I've played Blood Angels, typically, but a list that is really going to choose violence as the answer for how it wants to play. So that's what I want to do. I'm going to have a great time with it. I'm looking forward to it. But Seth, I'm playing that. You're playing Necrons.
I
Are you
am.
ready for it?
It was so I played Necrons right when the codex came out. I was testing some ideas and it just didn't really click for me. Go to LVO. Matt runs that hypercrypt list, and I watched him play a few games, and I went, man, that looks like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been playing mostly Canoptic Court in my testing, and I hadn't really given hypercrypt a chance. So I actually played Matt Laura's list for a little bit in practice, and I didn't like it. It didn't click for me. So I actually started working with some of my friends on the Canadian WTC team, and they started giving me some ideas and giving me some list of tests. And then actually the list I was running, my friend Francois took it to an event and then came back and was like, I have feedback. And so we've been working together, kind of coming up with this list. It is hypercrypt. I have like 2 chronomancers and 2 hex marks and 2 satan and what else? Low cursed heavy lord, the lord destroyer. I got like 2 bricks of immortals. I got a unit of heavy destroyers, a unit of scarabs, a unit of wraiths, and
So
then
many
a
toys.
monolith. Well, it sounds like a lot until you put it. I typically deploy 4 units at the start of the game, and that's it. And it feels so weird to be like, I have 4 things. That's it. That's all I've got. The rest is in reserve and it's going to come in later. So it's a way different play style than because I've been playing for 10th edition. I've played orcs, which is a horde, and then Votan, which is kind of a horde, and then I get the super elite, super mobile army, and I'm like, so it took a while to get my head wrapped around, but I'm excited to play it. I've had some fun with it. It's one of those lists that it's certainly very strong. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to like downplay the strength of Necrons. But it's one of those lists that I feel like if I lose, it's because of decisions I made, rather than sometimes like I with orcs, it would feel like I'm charging in, and then they're like, "Cool, I'm Armor of Contempt, and you don't do any damage," and I'm like, "Fun, that was fun." So I like that. I like that idea of it's my fault, not the dice.
I mentioned that I had played Necrons at my trios tournament a couple weeks ago, and I'd gotten some feedback from it. But Seth, I think I messaged you after the event, just my experience playing Hypercrypt Legion, and I haven't had that many practice games with it. My brain hurt so much after that day, and that was part of my decision process with this as well. Where Cherokee, I want to be able to go and enjoy dinner at the Wicked Weed Brew Pub and a couple of beers, and I don't want to be passing out in my dinner Friday night.
I may regret my choices as the weekend goes on, but I am absolutely going to put a clock on the table every round. Not necessarily because of my opponents, but because I am very much just sit there and think at the end of my opponent's turn, because you have to like figure out what units you're picking up, and then if you're playing tactical, you gotta think what cards you might draw, so what units you need to deal with those. And I'm just sitting there like in practice games, I've sat there for like 20 minutes, like just talking to myself, and I'm like, I need a clock so I don't do this in the real world. So anyway. I took a spin through the list. If you want to bring them up, I did some kind of nitty gritty, dirty statistics, and
there we go.
Yeah, so I did two things here. So first is this is every faction in attendance, and all major factions are represented here at Cherokee. Marines is all Marines minus Grey Knights, and they made up the bulk. I want to say it was close to like 50 some lists, and that's always the case. Marines are always the most popular faction.
Out of how many players are currently registered, Seth? I think it was like
currently registered is a little over 250. I think it's 252. Okay. If I remember, 257 currently registered. Now, some people didn't have lists submitted yet. They're obviously getting cards for that, so that's not like the data here doesn't represent all 257 because some of them don't have lists in. But Necrons were the second most common in the mid 20s. I think it's like 26 Necron players. So I am officially part of the problem, Nicky Dee.
Well, I mean, I'm in the majority with the Space Marines.
You are, and we'll get to. I did a Marine breakdown, and Blood Angels had a surprisingly high number of Marines. Then Custodes. Custodes are like 20 players with Custodes there. It is a lot of Custodes. If you don't know what Custodes do, you're about to find out at Cherokee. And they are definitely well positioned because they have a very strong game into Necrons. So that's interesting to see. And then I got surprised after that because the next highest was like Chaos Knights. Not what I was going to call for number 4 faction.
So Seth, let me ask you a question because Adam and the judge team they've implemented some new rules as it goes to how player place terrain is going to be in effect for Cherokee. Do you think Knights are perhaps maybe a reaction to players testing and seeing that, hey, this is an army that can be fast, can get angles, and may work well on new player place terrain? Or do you think this is maybe just local players want to play Chaos Knights?
I mean, Chaos Knights were fairly strong before the balance update. They got some points hits, and they took a lot of demon allies, and the demon allies things changed how they work. So they didn't lose any efficiency though. Like they still yes, your brigands going up a little bit in points, but they still could take a lot of carnivores. So and certainly they are a skew list. They are, here's a bunch of vehicles. Can you not deal with vehicles? Then you're dead. I'm sorry. So that's it. It's very interesting to see how that kind of shapes out when we get to our picks later for players. I'm intrigued there as to who might perform. But then orcs, there was a solid like 13 orc players. There was a solid like 13 Death Guard players. Solid like 13 Imperial Guard players. And those all have strong games still. I have set my beloved orcs aside for a bit, but they still have lots of play. And in player place terrain, combat armies can do a little bit better. You can plan how you're going to hide your units a little better. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this shakes out. Now, as the Marines go, Blood Angels were the most common Marine in attendance.
They're the best. That's why.
And now, Nicky Dee, what happened with Blood Angels to make them suddenly popular?
So, well, the change that was different. I'd be interested in this breakdown, but the Sons of Sanguinius detachment was updated so that it is now when they charge +2 strength and +1 attack. Previously, it was +1 strength. The interesting thing with that is that change in strength actually gets a lot of the units to some interesting breakpoints. Power Fist at strength 10, some of the force weapons at strength 7. A lot of the profiles that are out there that you need to be able to go into are either toughness 6, a lot of, some of the elite infantry. So going from strength 6 to 7 on the charge is a huge difference. But also, if you're going from strength 6 to 7, toughness 12 vehicles, you're wounding those on 5s, not 6s, right? And then that's, hey, if you get a +1 or reroll, like that really changes the math. I did play against a actual flesh terrors list that I mentioned that earlier. And with my demons, I saw that strength change is very real. And it made me a little sad that I'm not running the Sons of Sanguinius detachment myself.
Now, I'm jumping ahead because chat actually kind of brought up a point. So number 2 in terms of most popular was Dark Angels, which fairly popular still, particularly Dark Angels. Iron Storm.
Folks, and it's going to be Dark Angels are going to get updated with their codex here pretty soon. And there's a lot of Dark Angel players that are kind of gnashing their teeth about updates.
So this might be the last hurrah. Black Templar were strong before the update. They have a big representation at 19% of the Marines. Wasn't surprised to see them. The one that I was surprised and what I want to bring up, Tex-Mex Gaming says he's excited to get the Cherokee tomorrow. Vulcan lives. Salamanders at 17% of the Marines. I don't understand. Someone explain to me why salamanders are suddenly popular. Do you know?
I mean, they're cool. They are.
And I saw some list titles that seem to very much call out that salamanders were a counter to Necrons.
That's what I figured, though, especially, I mean, salamanders, and if you're familiar with the Firestorm detachment, it's not Ironstorm or it's not Gladius, but it's probably that next detachment most frequently seen. Giving Space Marine units the ability to give all of their range weapons assault and then +1 strength, that gets a lot of the weapons to good break points. It gives you more mobility. So if Necrons with their mobility is how they're winning games, how do you counter mobility? Well, maybe you fight fire with fire and go for the more mobile Marine build as well. Plus, I will add, the Salamander characters are pretty strong. If the Primaris guy, Adrex, Earthstone, and Vulcan, like they're both good, strong characters for what they do.
All right. Well, Tex-Mex Gaming, let us know why salamanders, and maybe enlighten me so I can not be surprised on the table.
Tex-Mex Gaming, at least as one Salamander player, has responded in the chat. Their response: "Flamers just be fun."
Okay, that's fair enough. Infernus Marines plus Vulcan plus Firestone equals Dev Wounds with full rerolls for 2 CP. Okay, Dean. Great. Cool. All right. I'll have to figure that one out. I'm going to go look that combo up later.
Yeah.
Dev Wounds with rerolls. That always makes me shudder. Okay. So I was reviewing lists to try to find some cool ones to point out. And I was mostly looking for kind of cool list composition, but I had to add a category for best list name because some of these names were out there, man.
This is one of my favorite things about 10th edition is people naming their list like long names or trying to put in like YouTube URLs or things like that. Like this is one of my favorite things. So this might have to be like a new segment on our show, Seth, on a regular basis, like best list name we've seen each week. Yeah, but we're going to cover it for Cherokee now.
Yeah, Bobby Soto, one of the Legion men, put in his title was just a YouTube link to the scenes from Aliens with the phrase "That's it, man, game over, game over." I don't think
good use.
I don't think Bobby's feeling. I think he's taking Tyranids. I don't know if he's feeling too confident with that. With that. Up next, Benjamin Rubenstein puts as the title of his list, "All praise the Repulsor Executioner, whose reactors roar with the sacred fires of Mars. Thanks we give for the hammering indomitability of the gravitic repulsor plates. Thanks we give for the destructious wrath of its heavy laser destroyer, and for the molten solar ferocity of its macroplasma incinerator. The Omnissiah's praise we cry from on high, from the bellicose machine spirit that drives the Repulsor Executioner onward, and the mystic energies that raise it up and propel it into war. Deus Omnissiah gloriatatum maximus, bane of heretics, destroyer of aliens, slayer of war engines, Repulsor Executioner, let thine hatred now be unleashed."
It's a lot of words.
Yeah,
a lot of words.
And of course, he's running 3 Repulsor Executioners.
I will let the audience know in a little secret here, Seth. So I actually know Ben. because
Oh, okay.
he's a TO in my home state of Rhode Island. The state of Rhode Island, we are famous for having we're the smallest state. But Rhode Island actually has the longest name of a state because the full name of the state is the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. So I also respect Ben for putting his long list name as a tribute to our state, my home state, the state where he currently resides. So Ben,
All right.
hats off to you,
Good
my
job.
friend.
All right. And then the next one, Alex Morris, and to give some kind of foreshadowing here, Alex is playing Emperor's Children's Chaos Space Marines. And he
Yeah,
says,
okay.
and this title is, I know I'm nerfing myself by running only one mark of chaos, but I really don't care. Pink is the best thing in life. From the color of steak to the sweetest place a man can be, pink is the color of happiness. Praise Slanesh and her favoring the best color.
There we go.
I mean, the man knows what he's about.
We need to have list name segments. That's what we're having going
I
forward.
worry about that as a segment though, because if people like, that was a little risque there. People are like, wait, Seth, I'll just read my list title out on air and I can make him say whatever. I don't know about
well, we're not going to do it Anchorman style. We're gonna proofread them before we go into it. Sure, yeah.
All right. In terms of crazy comp, there was two that I wanted to pull out, and I pulled them out in honor of Kicker and Joe. I pulled this one, the first one, because I think it's going to be Kicker's favorite list. And Brent Markismer, if you're there, wave at Kicker and show him your army, because I'm sure he'll love it, because it's 30 Rough Riders, 9 Ogren, and a pile of guard bodies, which is also going to be taxing on your back. So good luck. I hope you're fit like Kicker. But wave him over. I'm sure he'll love to see it. The other one is for Joe from War Games Live, and I think he will drool all over this list because he has been praising this particular build for a while and no one's been running it, and that's Jordan Cole. Jordan has 3 Wolfguard battle leaders on Thunderwolves, 2 Warlords on Thunderwolves, and 18 Thunderwolf cav, plus like Wolfen and other stuff. But it is just max amount of Thunderwolf cav.
This is a player that, like, I haven't looked at the moon schedule to see whether or not there's going to be a full moon this weekend, but this is the guy. Yeah. This is the guy that could be morphing into a werewolf like Friday night if you're out too late and not back in.
Jordan, make sure you buzz by the War Games Live table and let Joe take a look at your stuff, because I bet you he'll put you on stream with that many Thunderwolf cav.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So now, in terms of best painted, there are a number of players I saw in attendance that are folks to keep an eye on, because they're habitual kind of paint cut makers, if that makes sense. And the first is one of the Hobby Goblins, Eric Mullins, and he is running Chaos Knights. I actually think in chat, Dean shouted him out for making top cut at LVO.
He did.
Yep. So I can't imagine that Eric's army looks worse than it did at LVO. In fact, it's probably going to look better, because that's what those Hobby Goblins do, is they keep going back and adding to their armies. So I expect to see just some beautiful Chaos Knights on display there from him. Jason Langer, fellow orc fan, he's bringing his orcs, and he has we'll show it later. I have a picture of it, but he has a really cool display board that's sort of a combination of a rock stage and a Jurassic Park, like the entry gate, because he's running a gargantuan Squiggoth.
I've seen this. I've seen this before, and it is magnificent. Like, Seth's description of it is amazing, and it's very accurate. But it is one of those things you got to see it in person to believe in people.
It's great. It's a good time. And then Jonathan Mathis, he is bringing Blood Angels, and I've seen his Blood Angels before, and they are quite pretty. Lots of opportunities with Blood Angels for really great hobby display, and Jonathan's one of those ones that really goes above and beyond with this army. So I expect to see those guys kind of out there. I wanted to call them out, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other great armies, and we will get plenty of pictures and videos for you guys. Check it out over on the Frontline Gaming community page if you want to see what you missed. Now, Nicky Dee, it's time for personal predictions.
Yes.
How is Nicky Dee going to do at Cherokee?
Yep. I always try to have a goal for, what am I shooting for at an event? And generally my rule, and as I talk about gaming and how much time I commit to Warhammer with my wife, right? Because I've got a day job, do the podcast with you guys. I have limited time to play Warhammer, so I don't get to nearly practice as much as I would like. If I want to get better, I got to play more games, but I don't quite frankly have the time for that. But I do want to go and win as much as I can. So, typically for me, going to an event like this, I want to hit 500. If you're not a sports fan, that means you win half your games, you lose half your games. So if I can do that or better, I'm walking away, I'm satisfied with where I'm at. That's where, this past weekend at Battle to End Alzheimer's, I flirted with not hitting that mark. And that was kind of a wake up for me to kind of say like, hey, not hitting that or almost not hitting that didn't feel good. So it was my item to say, hey, don't try to get too cute with it at these big events. Like you do have to go at a big event. You're going to run into a lot of good players. And even when you're in the mid tables, you're going to have players that are punching above their weight because they got a good list, or just some people who are running things that are off meta, right? I think last year at Cherokee there was a list with 3 monoliths, which at the time was a very
that was Walter
odd. Yeah, and that was just a list where like at that time in 9th edition, people hadn't had to deal with that kind of toughness.
I think it was obelisks, not monolith. I think it had both actually. Obelisks.
Yeah, I think it had both. So that's the sort of thing where you gotta come prepared to play your best game. Don't try to get cute like I did, but I want to go 3-3. I am going to keep a kill count for Mephiston, like him specifically, and I'll hopefully have great tales to tell about what he killed and what he did in combat for it. But that's for me. Seth, I know you're more competitively focused for the event, so what's it looking like for you?
So the last 2 years that I've been there, I think I went 4-2 and 5-1. Maybe 5-1 both years. I can't remember the first year. That was the year I took Tau. But overall, I've always had a really strong showing at this event. So I really want to get back to that 5-1. I haven't hit 5-1 in 10th edition. So I really want to get back to that. So that's my goal. I would be amazed to get 6-0. I don't think that's likely and make top cut. But 5-1, I think is something I want to shoot for. 4-2, I think is probably where I'm going to end up. There's going to be some matchups I just don't know well because I just haven't, because I was hobbying so damn much. I haven't had too many reps with the army.
Sure.
And I think I've had 1 rep on the new player place rules. So I don't want to go below 4-2 if I can help it. But obviously no one wants to lose anyway. So, we'll see how we do. Now, outside of us, who do we think is going to win Cherokee? And I specifically call out factions that we think could win and players that we think could win.
Yep. So which one do you want me to start with, Seth? Do we want to start talking? Starting with faction. Okay. So I've got 2 in mind that I think are probably top contenders. One of them is going to be Necrons, right? They're big. There's a lot of them that are at the event. We know that they're a strong, they're a strong contender, strong on the X and 1 type of category. Our affiliate Meta Monday Joe, his latest post talked about how that the Necrons are still strong. The other faction that I might point to, and it's the faction that actually won the Battle to End Alzheimer's this past weekend, Sisters of Battle. They kind of got some nice. They got some updates. They're pretty well positioned with changes to the meta. And
their stupid reviving characters.
Their reviving characters are really good. I don't recall if Sites of Power is in the mission pack for this weekend or not. Like they're really good in that because of how many characters.
Well, I can check on the Frontline Gaming app.
Oh, good call out. Okay. But sister, like Fate dice, right? It's Fate. No, it's not Fate dice. It's the Miracle dice for sister. Yes. It's like that's especially like you got to deal with a monolith. You can guarantee some high damage shots, or that you make the shot. That's a nice feature to have. So sisters, with the humble battle sister as a troop, OC2 being able to control the board, sisters I think are in a pretty good spot. I know I was looking through the list and there weren't a ton of sister players. So it is the part there where then, so not as much as you see for some of the other factions. So they may be more limited in their number. But I do know a couple of good players that I did see on the list, sisters players that I think it would not surprise me if they make top cut for Sunday.
Sites of Power is round 2.
Okay, so yes, we are playing it.
It's take and hold, Sites and Power, supply drop, vital ground, priority targets, purge the foe. Then the final cut, which is probably not a concern for you and I.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think sisters definitely have a good play. Particularly, like I said, Sites of Power and the reviving characters. They're still very strong, even with their nerf to how many fate or miracle dice they can use at a time. They're still very good. Necrons, obviously, they're a good strong faction. They didn't take any nerfs or changes in the data slate. But I'm picking Custodes to win in terms of factions to win. And that's because last weekend, from the stats standpoint, Necrons got kind of exposed a little bit to their weakness to Custodes. The win rates at stat check is pretty heavily in Custodes' favor in that matchup. And a lot of the X and 1 Necron players from last week, and their one loss was to Custodes. So people have kind of found a natural predator, and they're an elite army with player place terrain, so you can make sure you have staging points for your models, and then they're in cover, and those 2-up armor save dudes in cover are kind of a jerk to kill. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of folks that get caught out with them because they didn't overtly take a ton of changes. They got some points cuts. They got some more dev wound defense back. But folks kind of forgot how good Custodes were, and now they're back with a vengeance. So they were quick to come off the shelf. So I think they're going to be the Golden Boys are going to run roughshod over the event.
Yeah, they're certainly a good choice. Very good in melee, and that's an area where Necrons can, depending on the build,
and they have like a fight first with Trajan. They have a fight first if they're on an objective. They reroll wounds when they're on objectives. Blah. Hate them. Sorry, I'm not biased. Now, what players do you think have a shot to win? Who are you calling out?
So obviously my other host on the show tonight is going to be a winner here. But aside from you, Seth, another Necron player that I will note, this is a guy that's a shark in my local meta, Josh Campbell. He came in as best Xenos at Battle to End Alzheimer's this past weekend, and he's running the same. He's running the same Necrons list that he ran last weekend that he obviously did very well with. So Josh, I think if you're not familiar with him, very good player. He's certainly one that's there. And then aside from that, I have to give a shout out to the guys from the team X and 4. This is a new team out of Central North Carolina that kind of grew out of the store at Atomic Empire, where I used to run events. So some of these are guys that I remember playing against some of them. Some of their first games of 40K, and some of them are now some of my good friends, travel buddies, have gone on trips with with us us as and our wives together, and been really good friends. But there's some really great players on that team, and they're really trying to grow competitively in that area. So whether it's Frank, whether it's Steven, whether it's Roman, or many of the guys on the team that I haven't yet met.
X and 4 in my pairings, I got to be like, you sons of bitches.
You need to be, if you need to, be prepared, maybe ask them about me and try to get them off, get them confused or get those kind of stories. But those would be, so Josh Campbell, Necrons, X and 4, one of the guys from X and 4.
All right. So I got 2 call outs that guys that I think have a shot at winning this. The first is a name we saw a lot at LVO, and that's Brian Jones. Brian Jones managed to go 5-1 at LVO, just missing out on the top cut. But he's on Team USA, and he's running not the strongest faction in most people's opinions, and that's Imperial Knights. He has found a way to make that faction work and work well for him. I think if he gets the right pairings, he certainly could have a solid win path. And if he Knights are real swingy on mission type, just because sometimes you get purged the foe, they're like, awesome, you're not killing more than me. Versus other times where it's be on 5 or 3 objectives, they're like, that's a lot of places to be and stand. I want to go shoot and kick things. So I think depending on what matchups he gets in some of those harder missions, I think he could have a good run there. He's made it on Team USA for a reason. So very solid player. He knows what he's doing. And then the other player I wanted to call out is Colin Cochran. He is a local player here to the Southeast. He had been playing CSM and doing very well with it, but he's gone back to his first love of 10th edition, and that's Chaos Knights. And so I think, again, if Colin's jumping to that faction, I got reason to believe he thinks it's a strong faction. And as we said, Chaos Knights were a very common choice in terms of army. Some folks have to have some reasons for choosing that. And Colin is a very accomplished pilot with those Knights. So I think he's got a shot there. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I spread my picks out. If I'm not right about Colin or Brian, at least I got Custodes to fall back on as my faction picks. I spread myself out.
Yeah, see, and I doubled up on Necrons, and then Josh, a Necron player, that's there. Or,
I mean, if that gives you that much more clout if you're right, because you're like, I did call Josh and I did call Necrons, and I was totally right. Versus I spread it out, so I had more chance of being right. You just get more points if you're right.
Fair. We'll keep score on these things. It's like whose line is it anyways? Where it's all made up and the points don't matter. But
I know the points affect your pay. Did you not know that?
Oh, okay. I'll have to keep that in mind for next time.
Yeah. See, that's why I spread my bets out.
Seth, we're going to be talking about Rocky Mountain Open in just about a month and going through the same exercise. So I will be bringing my A game for that.
All right, got
exercise.
it. All right, yes. So I let you in on the secret. All right, let's talk about some of our friends over on other networks, other YouTube channels, friends of Frontline here. Of course, you can watch all of the coverage of the Cherokee Open on War Games Live. Joe will be there streaming. Excited to see him. Have a good time hanging out with him. Our buddies over at TFG Radio, head judge Adam Solis, that is his podcast. They just put out an updated episode on the balanced data slate, so it's good to hear it from a judge's perspective. And then Party at the All Points is now back in action after Dayton has finished his trip to Ireland. He is back in Canada. I am sorry, Canada. He made it back somehow. I know you were hoping he would make it back, but he did. And Party at the All Points is back, and they're breaking down all of the updated battle scrolls, which is basically the balanced data slate for AOS. So go check them boys out. Now, in terms of community highlights, we're going to take a step back and remind you that I said Jason Langer has a good shot at winning Best Painted at Cherokee. And this is his display board that he posted up today. Looking really sweet. You can see that big pink surly squig off there in the back. He's got the rock stage, but he's got those nice vibrant colors, which always makes orcs pop. But there was a different person that posted orcs today that I was quite surprised and quite proud of to see. And that is our always in chat supporter of the show, fan and media member extraordinaire, Kelsey Ito, posted up his orcs. He's got Gazgul and a couple of Mega Knobs, which is really cool to see. So welcome to the WOG, Kelsey. Welcome to the WOG. Adam Peterson, who is always the man that remembers the post about work in progress update Wednesdays when I forget. He posted up his beautiful Blade Guard veteran for his Emperor Spears. I really love the power swords. I like when you do a power weapon that really pops against the main color of the army. So that kind of pinkish purple red pop looks great. And of course he does the kind of glow effect amazing, which is really great to see. And then Patrick Martin, one of our boys in attendance for Cherokee, he is just going to town with those gargoyles, getting them ready with that beautiful color scheme of kind of it's almost like a bluish green on the wings and then kind of a tannish orange on the body. So great job, Patrick. Excited to see those at the event. And then this was actually from a friend that I had met at LSO, Matt. Matt sent over to me just kind of showing off what he was working on. Do you remember the Realm of Battle boards, the Cityscape boards, the extremely detailed plastic boards that GW released? I don't know, 2-3 editions ago.
Mm-hmm.
He is painting up one of those as an auction prize for Clutch City GT. And he has a lot more pictures of plates beyond this, but it is looking fantastic. I love those boards. They look great. My only gripe with those boards is, as you can see next to the roads, there are gutters that love to suck up dice. So if you ever play on one of these boards, you need a dice tray.
Yep.
Otherwise, fantastic, super thematic.
Yeah, I always play with the dice tray. It's when we talk about necessary hobby supplies, dice tray for me is one of those things everyone should have. And anytime I show up to the table, I tell my opponent, I'm rolling in a dice tray. It only counts for that. Makes it easier. It's quality of life improvement.
I try. It depends on there's some games I don't, but it's usually like when I'm in the middle table in a row. And there's not really like an easy, like, I'm like, oh, I'm going over here, the other side of the table to move stuff around. And then I got to come all the way back to get my dice tray. I might not use it for that game, but otherwise I have a nice little collapsible FLG one that I use at most events. I have several other much nicer ones, but they don't travel as well as compared to the collapsible FLG one. So it tends to be what I use. Okay. Final thoughts for the night, Nicky Dee. I know we took our brief episode and made it 54 minutes long.
I think that's whenever we say we're going to do a short show, it ends up being a longer one. But I want to give a shout out to another member of the FLG crew or team or volunteer, that sort of thing. But Brian Green. Brian is going to be playing in the GT, the 40K GT.
He's playing Custodes.
He is playing Custodes. He's been sending and sharing some of his pictures of his hobby progress and his display board. He told me, by the way, his secret to getting better as a hobbyist was joining the Hobby Goblins Discord. So shout out to Jacob and those guys.
Yep.
But Brian, though, last year he ran the narrative event that ran on Sunday. He reached out to me to say, "Hey, am I going to see you there again?" Apparently, he's really upped the ante for that narrative event, and I am not, because I'm driving back on Sunday. So I just want to say, for Brian and all the folks that are playing in the narrative on Sunday, have a lot of fun. I'm sad that I won't be there for this one, but I'll get you guys next time.
All right. Well, I feel like I shouldn't pivot to the narrative Sunday with my Hypercrypt list. That's probably not a nice thing to do to people. Joe from War Games Live actually reached out to me and was like, "Do you want to play a game on stream? Test stream on Thursday night?" And I was like, "All I have is Hypercrypt. I'm sorry, that's all I'm bringing." And I was like, "Also, my wife and I are going to dinner." But yeah. So yeah, super excited for it. I can't wait to hit the road tomorrow, kind of kid on Christmas kind of thing. I always enjoy the drive up because the drive's real pretty. My wife and I'll hang out for a few hours and we get to pick up Adam and hang out with him on the drive up. And then, yeah, I mean, as soon as we get there, it's just like, it's hanging out with friends all weekend, throwing dice. And, there's a lot of good memories there. In fact, this was the first place you and I ever met.
Yeah. Or yes, we had met briefly from LVO. It was something, but we had limited interactions that was there from it. But really, that was the start for this show, or at least me being part of the show. So I'm excited to be back here. It's definitely a big family get together in its own way. Now, Seth, before we go, important question here, show related question. It's something that we talk about. I have not yet experienced it myself, but it's a favorite of yours and Kicker. Are you stopping at a Buc-ee's on the way up to Cherokee?
There's literally a Buc-ee's in my hometown, like that I live. Like there's one here. It's 5 minutes from where I work.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it, but we're probably going to have to.
You're probably going to do it.
I'll text the Kicker man and see what he wants. What do you want?
Well, I don't think I want to try it yet because I feel like no. Hear me out though, Seth. I need to be there in person. To try it for the first time. I don't want it like someone's bringing it for me. I need to be there.
I'm vetoing that plan. Sorry, but
okay.
I'm bringing you something. Well, all right.
Okay. If that's the case, I mean, I have not been, so my judgment could be off on this thing. So I leave it to your discretion then as to, I eat pretty much everything. I'm not picky, for that sort of thing. So we'll see. Well, I'll see you when I see you tomorrow with Buc-ee's in hand.
Well, until next time, folks, we really hope you enjoyed this episode of Signals on the Frontline. Have a great week, and we will see you at the Cherokee Open.
Night, folks.